Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Viewpoint. It's our pleasure knowing that you are there for this other edition of exchange of views on issues affecting us. Tonight we are talking about issues relating to hate speech in Cameroon and how related that is to the development of Cameroon. To talk to us, we have two gentlemen who will be talking to us. One is in the studio and one is live with us from Rwanda. Permit us welcome on board Mr. Tabon Karl. He is joining us live from Rwanda. Good evening, Karl, and thank you for being there with us.
Good evening, Mr. Venatius. Thank you once more for inviting me into your program. I'm happy with that. I will not first of all go without greeting my precious mother, Tabon Serane, which is currently ill. I believe that God should put hands so that she recover from her illness. I will also not go without greeting one of my good friends here in Rwanda called Jean-Marie Abin, who is my very good friend. And I also greet the entire Northwest and Southwest region of Cameroon and to tell them that the time has come for us to maybe see what we can do as far as our crisis is concerned, especially the inclusive dialogue. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Karl. We will be together for the next 26 or so minutes in the show. Accompanying him is Mr. Epie Noj Avi. He is an entrepreneur. It's not the first time that we're receiving him. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Venatius. And it's a pleasure for me to be with you this evening. And we hope to enjoy the next 27 minutes together.
Actually, and it has been some time that you were...
Yes, it's been a rough time. I've really been very busy catching up with some small projects with the spelling bee.
Yes.
But I thought it wise to be here today and see how we can exchange a bit before I continue.
All right. In subsequent editions, we are going to look at issues related to that spelling bee. You know, it is something that we need talking about it on Viewpoint as well.
Exactly. I think so.
All right. Let us go straight away to part one of the program, the yes or no answer session. We begin with question one, and Karl, I am with you. Can the phenomenon of hate speech be controlled in Cameroon?
No.
Karl says no, it cannot be controlled. Mr. Epie?
Yes.
Epie says yes, it can be controlled. Epie, I remain with you. Does this have any bearing? We're talking about hate speech. Does it have any bearing on the development of Cameroon?
Yes.
It does. Mr. Epie says it has a bearing. Karl, I'm with you. Does it have any bearing with the development of the country?
Of course, yes.
Of course, yes, it does. So let's take part two of the program to hear them talk to us. For those of you just joining us, you are watching Viewpoint on DBS Television, and we are live on our Facebook page. For about 2 weeks, the National Commission on Bilingualism and Multiculturalism in Cameroon have been brainstorming with partners, civil society activists, the states, and all other stakeholders to look for ways to mitigate the rising wave of hate speech in Cameroon. Among issues that were raised, we're trying to control using legal, national and international instruments to make sure that this phenomenon of hate speech is controlled, and if not, brought to an end in our country. In tonight's edition of the program, we're asking the question: can hate speech be controlled in Cameroon? Tabon Karl, live from Rwanda, thinks that says that it cannot be controlled. Tabon, can we hear you?
Yes, the reason why hate speech cannot be controlled in Cameroon is simple. Those who created this hate speech are still in power. Those who made Cameroonians to develop hatred as far as each other is concerned are still in power. For the hate speech to be controlled, first of all, the minority ruling Cameroon should leave Cameroon for those who are competent and patriotic and want to rule Cameroon in the interest of Cameroonians should take over power. If this is done, there hate speech will be controlled. For example, you're talking about hate speech. We have to talk about the origin of hate speech. Where did it originated? It originated from the fact that some people has taken Cameroon to make Cameroon as a personal property, and they are ruling Cameroon as if Cameroon was borrowed somewhere, and one day they will return Cameroon to the rightful owner. That is the reason why hate speech cannot end with this present regime. For instance, look at what happened in the 2018 presidential election. In the Constitutional Council, one presidential candidate said it clearly that they should show him where there is an exam that somebody can write to become a Bulu. People will not keep on embezzling our money, rule Cameroonians as if they are slaves, bad governance, and you think that where Field Marshal is destroying my village, where people are destroying, the army is destroying my village, they would tell me I should stop with hate speech. I would tell you no, because if they want all to stop with hate speech, they should first of all leave power, and the person who will come will preach reconciliation, national reconstruction, and we'll talk about justice. For example, I'm in Rwanda here. Rwandans have problem, but the problem is there is what we call good governance in Rwanda. We are not more than Rwanda. Rwanda went through a terrible situation in 1994 when the Tutsi and the Hutu were fighting against each other, what we call the Rwandan genocide in 1994. But today it has stopped because another leader came up and made the people of Rwanda that let's work together. And you see the fruits of what you are working. If you have a country like my own country, a beautiful country, the Garden of Eden, and the Garden of Eden where you can find everything, and everything that is found in Africa, you can find it in Cameroon, be it food, be it the natural resources. But a handful of Cameroonians has taken it hostage. When people are getting richer every day, and the poor ones are instead going to the worst situation, they want to terminate hate speech will end. I will tell you no, Mr. Venatius. They should leave power for another person to take over this power and hate speech. And we will now talk about hate speech. Let them stop. Let them stop camouflaging. Camouflage is not good. The national bilingualism, it has up to today. I see things written in English, translation in English. In fact, you will not want to read them. Let them stop with cosmetic solutions. They should do what is right. I know they cannot do it because the government has failed. And it has failed completely, and it's failed woefully, Mr. Venatius.
Thank you, Mr. Carl. But you would understand that when we talk about governance and hate speech, we make a difference here. If we are complaining of governance, then there are democratic institutions or instruments that are used to make sure that what you qualify as, a failed government can be put aside through the ballot box. But when you look about the ballot box in Cameroon, you will see the high rate of, voter apathy, where people don't participate in elections. How do you expect the country to change when people don't want to go to the polls?
The truth is crystal clear. Cameroonians are no more naive. I will never be naive again. Before we will go into any election in Cameroon, we already know who is going to win that particular election in Cameroon. And the people are telling you that those of the ruling party are telling you that they'll have this particular percentage during the presidential, the municipal, or the municipal election. They already know. For example, before we went in for the election in 2018, they said they were going to have 71%, and it happened. That is the crystal clear. The only thing we can do in Cameroon is either God helps Cameroon, or the Cameroonians stand up for their or reivindicate for their own country. These are the two things that can help us in Cameroon. So when I should stop that, maybe ballot people out there will help us. No, I will tell you no. I will tell you no. We have participated in politics in Cameroon. We know what politics in Cameroon means. Politics in Cameroon is not the ballot box with this present regime. It is not about this present regime. It cannot work. So what you tell me about ballot box, I'll tell you no. And that's the more reason why, because of that, because Cameroonians are fed up with the electoral system in Cameroon, because Cameroonians are fed up with everything in Cameroon. Look at the COVID-19 test, Mr. Bernard. Cameroonians in Cameroon is a country that now sells COVID-19 tests. Just COVID-19, a negative result, they'll give you if you are negative, they give you a positive result because you're not giving money. If you give money, you're positive, they give you a negative result. No, it will not. When Cameroonians see these things, it brings what called anger. Anger. People are angry. People are nursing grudges. But they cannot say anything. I am saying Cameroon is today just like a spring. The day this government will not be able to contain that particular spring, Cameroon will explode. And I've been saying, do you think that somebody in the Northwest and South region, especially in Kwakwa, Nakebole, Besali, Bali, Batibu, do you think that person, you preach about hate speech, that person already knows that his brother in the French region is his enemy? It will not. I am saying in order to change hate speech in our country, we first of all have primo, the government in place, that truly the government in place, the ruling party should leave that particular place, another person takes over. There we shall be talking about controlling, or maybe we will stop hate speech. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, Mr. Tabong, but you realize, like I said, that when it comes to politicking, when you want to kick out a party that is not delivering the goods, like you say, then we go to the polls, kick them out. And when you talk about elections, you will discover that those who are politicking round the clock, they are able to predict their results because they carry out political activities throughout. If people sleep around and think that when they will just get up in the morning of the elections and go and canvass vote, it may be difficult. Anyway, but let's take the views of Epienoch Avi. He's an entrepreneur who thinks that hate speech in Cameroon can be controlled, Mr. Epie.
It's a debate, and I enjoyed very much the points Mr. Carl made live from Rwanda. Mm-hmm. He mentioned so many pertinent points that concerns all of us Cameroonians, whether from the southwest region, from the northwest, or from the francophone part of this country.
We are all Cameroonians.
We are all Cameroonians.
Yes.
But one thing that I want all of us to understand is when we talk about hate speech, we shouldn't limit our opinions only to the political aspect of it. Mm-hmm. Because I have the impression that is what Mr. Carl was doing. Mm-hmm. All his opinions were limited to the political aspect of it, but this is not what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. We're talking about hate speech in general. And I'm going to question one thing he did. He said hate speech cannot be controlled. Mm-hmm. Before giving him my opinions, I want to contradict him first because that's what we're doing here.
Of course.
He said hate speech cannot be controlled, but his first point that he brought up was the fact that for hate speech to be controlled, the government has to be changed. Mm-hmm. The regime has to change. Mm-hmm. It means that hate speech can be controlled.
Yes.
So if he gave that, because that was his first reason. Mm-hmm. He said hate speech cannot be controlled because the government is there. If that regime is changed, hate speech will be able to be controlled. It means that is one reason. Mm-hmm. That is one push factor that can motivate the change of hate speech. So already there is controversy at the level of his response. But then let's focus on how hate speech can be controlled. Mm-hmm. I'm going to start by using the points Mr. Carl made advance to help us see that, yes, it can be controlled. Mm-hmm. He said the way the government has ruled, it has made it such that Cameroonians have developed so much hate. People are so much angry that they talk anyhow. Mm-hmm. I want to ask a question, Mr. Benachos. When you are having a simple conversation with you and your brother, you and I on this platform now, are your thoughts, your mindset, your speech guided by government actions?
I don't think so.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So how do you bring about somebody's personal mindset, somebody's personal expression, and blame the government? Mm-hmm. We should not put ourselves in a situation where we fail and we are looking for excuses. Mm-hmm. We are looking for possibilities of throwing it on others. The government might have failed, in quotes, but I don't think that the government's failure, it's the sole cause of hate speech. Mm-hmm. Go online, all of us are, unfortunately, we are in the social media era, and all of us spend some time, at least within a day, going through our social media timelines. Mm-hmm. And you agree with me that just reading through normal posts, we have bloggers, we have artists, we have comedians everywhere. Mm-hmm. They post things. Just reading through normal comments from posts, you see people expressing a lot of hate. The question I want to ask is this hate being transpired to this generation by simply what the government is doing? I don't think so. I think that we've grown up to be so pessimistic. We've grown up to be so negative. We've grown up with so much jealousy that when we see something that is good, we always want to contradict. The problem is, I think that the main cause of hate speech is the mindset. We are living in a generation where people are so greedy, people are selfish, people are self-centered, people are covetous, people think only of their own interests. They don't think of the interests of others. And as such, the minute somebody sees something that is not in accordance with what he or she has in his or her mind, the only points that this individual can bring up are things which will be negative. And those are the things that causes bad expressions, which we can return to the hate speech on this platform. When you see somebody doing something which is not in line with what you thought, or it does not go in accordance with what you probably should be thinking, these are the things that causes hate speech. And it grows day in, day out, because imagine expressions against another person's tribe. What do you think happens?
He will have to retaliate.
He will have to react. And that is how it goes on and on. And another person, another partner will come in, maybe because he's from this tribe, who want to support. Yes, I agree with Mr. Carl. The government might have done some things that rises up the anger of the population, that makes them feel negative. But I feel that as human beings, we need to work on our mindset. If we are saying that we cannot control hate speech, it means we are saying we are animals. But are we animals? I don't think so. We are human beings. We can reason. We should not allow ourselves to be controlled by the actions of other people, but rather we should see how to be able to guide our steps, guide our speech, guide our lips, say things that will be upbuilding, and work on the perceptions, the things we have in our minds.
Thank you, Mr. EPA. Let's go back to Mr. Carl. Mr. Carl, before we take question 2, I just wanted to find out from you, does Cameroon belong to some particular individual, some particular people, some particular set of people, more than it does to every other Cameroonian?
Mr. Vena, before I answer a particular question, I'm going to first of all tell Mr. EPA that I'll take the example, just distracted example of Rwanda. Before they come in, Paul Kagame, before they come into power with Paul Kagame, Kagame encounter what we call, we do not have the HP in Cameroon is not what they had here before 1994 between the Tutsi and the Hutu. Today you will not talk about Tutsi in Rwanda nor Hutu again in Rwanda, because the regime came and made the people to understand that there can be good leaders in Africa. And if you go Kagame is one of the best presidents in Africa. If you go and I'll invite you in Rwanda, you will understand that. Rwanda has developed today because they changed the government, and the people came to realize that his speech was not good, because the other people made the others to understand that they have nothing. As a result of that, it resulted to a serious war, which was a genocide of 1994. And let me bring it back to the case of Cameroon. Before the present regime, let's say back in the 1994, 93, or 97, you could not hear this issue of hate speech. But now Cameroonians are conscious that, let me tell you, a hungry man is an angry man. No matter what you do, a hungry man will be an angry man. And that's the more reason why you see, because of bad governance in Cameroon, most of us out there will not talk about the family case, the Pulu, the Petit, the that, and so forth and so on. So let me tell you, when you talk about mindset, the mindset, if the people ruling you are not partial, they are not. If the people ruling you are partial, therefore means it will disturb their mindset. You not imagine that is the more reason why I'm telling you. If you have all what we have in Cameroon today, as far as hate speech is concerned, it is because of those ruling our country. And I'll tell you that. Let me quote another example, which is not far. Let's take the case of Tanzania. Before they came out of Magufuli, there was hate speech in Tanzania. When he came, he made the point to understand that we are all together and work together, and he brought what we call good governance. Tanzanians were happy till the day God called him. I want to tell you, that is the words that I say. In order to stop hate speech in Cameroon, this government should leave, because they have corrupted our mindset. They have made us to understand that they are ruling us like dictators. That's the more reason why the majority of Cameroonians hate one another. A famous politician will not sit in a constitutional council, I rarely mention it, and tell Cameroonians if there is any exam that one needs to pass, to become a Kulu, he's going to do it in order to become a Kulu. You have not measured the weight of that particular word in the Constitutional Council. Today they want to tell me about solving hate speech. Those who created that hate speech are those ruling Cameroonians. Those who corrupted and destroyed the mindset of Cameroonians are those ruling Cameroonians. For example, you will not imagine that Rwanda, a small country which is not up to the surface area of the Mungo division. They have nothing as resources. Come and see the development. Come and see how Rwandese live. With no resources. We have all the resources. But a chunk, I can say, a handful of minority, not even a minority. I can say 0.5, one tenth of Cameroonians are holding Cameroonian hostage. That's the more reason why we, especially me, I am saying hate speech will not see any change to this present government change. Let me go to another example, which is crystal clear. Look at what happened in front of the Ministry of Justice. Somebody went and destroyed vehicles at the Ministry of Justice. Do you think that a country without justice, will it hate speech? I will tell you no. In Cameroon, most justice in Cameroon is rendered is bought by the highest builder. Don't you know that? That is the origin of hate speech. The bad governor, that's the origin of hate speech. The Anglophone crisis, that's the origin of hate speech. And this government, the present regime, cannot stop cannot stop it. I have said the next government will stop hate speech when we bring Cameroonians together.
Okay, Mr. Tabon, we'll give you a breather while Mr. Ipie, we'll take question 2 with Mr. Ipie. We are looking at how this hate speech affect development in the country. Mr. Ipie is an entrepreneur, and he says, yes, it has a bearing on the development of the country.
Yes. When I ended up the first part of my debate, I gave the example of one tribe turning to hate another because of maybe what one person has said about that. And unfortunately, let me use the word unfortunately, because we're in a country with more than 250 plus tribes, ethnic groups. And so I'll use the word unfortunately, we are so broad, we are so open, and it means we have different mindsets, different conceptions, different ways of doing things. And obviously, always, we will find ourselves in a situation where for us to work on a certain project, for example, there might be someone from Douala, someone from Ebiti, someone, a Bakosiman, a Bakwereman, a Ndoman, and all of that. There's a mixture of so many people that have to come together. Now, imagine that you're about to work on something, and the person that is best, you're about to work on a project. Let's assume you were building a company, and you have a certain position, a certain responsibility you're giving out to another person because you cannot handle everything. And the person suited for that, maybe recommended to you by another, is someone who is from a tribe that you hate. What are you going to do?
Of course, you drop the person, and then your company
you drop the person, and then you're going to pick somebody else. And now, when this company doesn't experience what we call growth, does it affect development in that country? It does. I'll tell you that so many institutions fall today. Development is regressive, in quotes, in Cameroon because of this. Because this person doesn't like this, because this cannot work with this, because I have my company, I need to work only with this kind of people. All these things are...
Forgetting any other thing about merit.
Exactly.
Yes.
All these things are causes of hate speech, and this is how it affects development. I remember back in the days when we wanted to go to the university in Yaoundé, I'm not going to mention, but there was a school that used to be very renowned, used to be very known, very popular, had a reputation, but died because everyone working in that school was from a particular tribe.
Okay. Whether you are competent or not.
Whether you are competent or not. I mean, everyone, from the highest point of the of administration to the lowest, everyone was from a particular tribe. And I don't even know if they exist today. They are probably really other services. Whenever I go there in Yaoundé, I don't see them working anymore. So these are just things. Now imagine an institution that was probably supposed to create a mark, create a name. I tell you that in 2007, I'm going to give you an example. In 2007, when the HND system came to Cameroon, it was brought to Cameroon by Dr. Mulema Veronica from England. She took it to the Ministry of Higher Education and said, you know, the Francophones have been doing the BTS. This is the equivalent, the
in
HND.
English, yes.
And I am not a businesswoman. I cannot create a school. But if you can include this into the school system, schools will do it, and it's going to work. And the then minister at that time called two businessmen who were two owners of two big professional schools in Yaoundé and told them, you know, this is a project, this is a system of education called HND. It's equivalent to the BTS, which we have, which we've been having, which our students have been taking. If you can include this into your system of education, it's going to be of a big benefit to the economy. The first businessman, who was the person like the one on top, his expression was les anglophones là, vraiment, bon, je suis pas moi là. That was what he said.
Yes.
So you can imagine, and he left it. And the second one still made the same expression, but he said, je vais essayer. He had a small portion somewhere around his campus. He just said, okay, I'll build a structure here, and then let's see what happens there. And he gave it. That businessman who said no, that school doesn't exist today.
Okay. So those are setbacks to development that are linked to hate speech.
Imagine, so you can imagine.
Okay. Mr. IPA, let's take, and we believe that most of this, they suffer because of, you know, what we call ignorance. They don't understand, and then they are blinded by hate speech. But let's take Mr. Tabong, who is out there. Mr. Tabong thinks as well that hate speech has a link, a bearing on the development of the country.
Yeah, Mr. Venash, I said yes because just take the case of what is happening in my village now in Besale. Do you think one of my parents was somebody living in Besale, and maybe or maybe being Ganjo, Sumonganjo, maybe Batigo? Do you think you tell that person, okay, let's forget about this issue and let's go in for the reconciliation, reconstruction that the government said it would take place, and he accept? He would tell you no, because they know that their enemies is on the opposite side. This was created by bad government. Do you think that if this government brought out the centralization since 1996, since 1992, that the constitution was put in place, we'll have had what we call hate speech today? I will tell you, no, we'll have had what we call the Anglophone crisis. We'll have no, Cameroon would have been developed by now if there was decentralization, where the people have to control their own things, like the local government we have in Nigeria, like the local government we have here in Rwanda. Like you see development everywhere. It is because people now do not trust those who hate them. For example, I'm telling you, when they hate speech, the person who created the hate speech in Cameroon is the present regime that we have to be in Cameroon. That is what it is, some part development. He said, the engineer, he really said something. Let me tell you, even most of the projects that are given to individuals have a link. If you do not, if you have a link, either you are a brother or sister or nephew or whatsoever thing. If you are not part of them, you have to bribe in order to get a project to construct someone. Maybe you have the way you master, you know very well. And how will it bring out development? What will bring out development? I mean, his speech has spoiled everything, Mr. Vedasu. Just take another particular case, which is crystal clear. It is crystal clear. Let's think about the developmental program, the developmental program in most of the suburbs. In most of the suburbs, before you give a project to a contractor, you make that contractor that I will need. If you do not give me 30% or 50% of it, nothing will happen. Do you think that is good? Good, really good. That is how hate speech has delayed and hampered development in the Republic of Cameroon, a blessed country.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Tabong. You know, if you could get it from the background, the technicians are telling us that our time is up. Thank you for being out there for us. We'll be getting back to you when your schedule out there in Rwanda permits you. Mr. IPA, thank you for being there for us.
Thank you too very much, Mr. Venash. It was a pleasure for me. I will not leave without saying a big sending greetings to the National Spelling Bee team.
Okay.
We are preparing for the finals this weekend. Shout out to the promoter, Mr. Caleb Kwaina, and we hope to have a blast this weekend.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, that is all we had time for today's edition of the program. Up next will be the news in the English language with Cynthia Ngwemo. Until we meet again, have a blessed evening and goodbye.